Hey, Becky, that special guest is Robert Davis, the CEO of Merck. Rob, thanks for being with us this morning. Big quarter for Merck. Let's start with what drove the quarter. It seemed like you guys were looking at kind of a recovery from a lot of the COVID impacts, seeing it in massive Keytruda numbers, Gardasil numbers, your MMR plus chickenpox vaccine doing well because of a return of wellness visits. What are you seeing in terms of the COVID impact and what you're modeling going forward?
Well, first of all, Meg, thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate the time this morning. As you said, we did have an incredibly strong quarter, and it's really coming across all of the pillars of our business. You've mentioned some of those, but within our oncology business, led by Keytruda, which grew 22% in the quarter, our vaccines business, led by Gardasil, which grew 68% in the quarter, and then obviously our animal health business, which had strong growth at 16%. So really, we are seeing the impact of the pandemic is largely receding, and really we have strong underlying demand and good momentum in the business right now. I feel really good about.
So you didn't include molnupiravir in your forecasts for 2021, but you've been striking a lot of deals with governments. Tell us about just how you're kind of looking at the impact of that drug and the dynamics of COVID right now. Numbers are still high, but they are coming down. How are you just kind of looking at that for the rest of the year and into early next year?
Yeah, well, obviously, as you mentioned, while it does seem like some of the numbers around COVID-19 are improving, it still is having really a grievous impact globally. So we really do believe that this new antiviral drug will make a meaningful difference. And as we look at what is the opportunity for it, it truly is about a drug you can take, a pill, an antiviral pill you can take at home. So it still has, I think, a meaningful opportunity as another tool to make a difference. As we look right now, we're currently working with the FDA to get approval as quickly as possible. We have an advisory committee coming up the end of November, and then hopefully we'll be in a position before the end of the year to start shipping product both in the United States and around the world. And as you know, I'm really proud of the access strategy we put in place around this drug to make sure we can accelerate delivery of this drug to everyone in the world that needs it. So as we look at it, I think this is a real opportunity first for the patients that need it, but it will be an important opportunity for Merck as well. And right now, we're on pace to have 10 million doses or 10 million courses ready before the end of this year and more than double that next year. So as we think about the opportunity this could be, obviously we need to get it approved, we need to see the label, but as you mentioned, we're working with governments and we're well positioned to get this thing moving very quickly once we have it approved.
And that global agreement that you struck to be able to provide this and access to making this to low and middle income countries, getting a lot of accolades from people who usually don't praise pharmaceutical deals. So that is really notable. I want to come back to something you just mentioned about the label with the FDA potentially for molnupiravir. It's early days, obviously. We haven't seen how they're thinking about it, but some have suggested there could be strict post-marketing requirements and sort of restrictions around the use of the drug because of its potential mutagenic effects. Of course, you guys are giving just a short course of treatment. You've examined this closely, but what is your expectation for the breadth of the potential label here?
Sure. Well, obviously it'll be up to the FDA to ultimately determine what the label for molnupiravir will be. But importantly, if you look at where we studied it in adults with mild to moderate COVID-19 who have tested positive for COVID-19, who had risks that would show progression likely to hospital or death. That was the patient population we studied this in, and that'll, I assume, be what the FDA will think about as they look at the label. As you mentioned about the mutagenicity, I think it's important to understand we did a lot of study of this, both in vitro and in vivo, and used really what are established tests to determine whether or not this drug is safe and whether or not we see any indication that it is mutagenic. And I can tell you through the data we've seen and the studies we've done, we think this is a safe drug. We don't see the mutagenic risk. Obviously, we will continue to study it, but we feel very confident that when we are able to fully display and discuss our data, that others will come to the same agreement, which is the benefit of this is real, it's meaningful, and we believe it's safe.